Welcome back to the show. Now, property investing is all about the numbers, and straight off the stage from Sydney, we've got Charles Tarbey from Century 21. You've been travelling the world, travelling the country speaking.
I haven't.
I've been following in your footsteps 2 days later.
I told people today I was the most popular speaker in Australia today because I'm free. So there you go. I was there free of charge today. It was fantastic.
And this is a Property Millionaires tour that's travelling around Australia, just educating people all about different ideas on property.
Arranged by Pat Metzidi for his clients and friends of his clients and people around the trap. So, yeah, it's very interesting talking to people about real estate.
Sounds good. I'll have to come and listen to you.
Yeah, sure.
So what's happening with clearance rates?
The clearance rates, on average, Chris, across the country was 67.2%. This time last year was 67.7%. So we're pretty much line ball with what's going on. Sydney was the best performer at 75.6%. It was pretty good. And Melbourne actually was 66 in that range. So not as great as Sydney, but still strong. Adelaide was the one that surprised me again, 60.09%. So that's been steady for quite some time.
And thoughts on that changing over the coming weeks?
I think it'll change. It's certainly going to get stronger with when the weather changes. Probably not so much this weekend with all the snow we're seeing around the traps in parts of the country, but certainly as springtime starts to kick in, we'll start to see a very big change in the marketplace.
And how are things like for new properties coming on the market?
That's a big drop this week, a minus 6.43%, so that's like 6 weeks in a row now. If you go to New Zealand in the Manawatu or Otago region, and it's very hard to say some of the names in New Zealand. I have to do a bit more practice. But those areas, the Wanganui areas, are actually bucking the trend. They're getting some strong growth, whereas most of New Zealand is going the other way. So stock is still a bit of a problem in most of the Australasian region.
Now, we found with a lot of our rents around the beach areas that a lot of the money's coming off. So tenants are breaking leases in the middle of winter, and suddenly you could be knocking $100 or $200 off your rent from getting a premium to getting a smaller thing.
You know, we started a chart 2 years ago from zero, and we've been watching it climb, and it had a good strong climb, and then it stopped, and it pretty much stopped for the last 3 or 4 months, where in certain parts of Australia, for instance in Sydney, the rents are sitting from zero to 2 years later at a climb at 11.91% and been sitting in the 11s for a while. Melbourne at 8.08, Perth at 18.66. So the average between those three is 12.88% when you look at them from almost 2 years ago. And they've sat in that middle range.
Again, I was speaking to one of the papers about holiday rentals, and again, in these different markets, suddenly 1 minute you might be getting premium rents, and then the next minute, so if you've got holiday rentals and ski resorts, it could be the best time in the world for you, but if you've got a summer location, suddenly it's the worst time in the world.
The time to sell something is right in the peak season. So if you've got a property in the snowy mountains, you want to sell it now. You want to collect the rent, but sell it now. Wait too long, the price goes the other way.
And so how's the vacancy going?
They've been climbing. Perth has been the worst performer of all when you look at it. I mean, it's not bad, but it's been the worst performer. Sydney itself this week is at 3.18% in vacancy rates. Melbourne at 3.02%, which is better. But Perth, 5.18%. So the average across the country is 3.79% vacancy with those three capital cities. But Perth has been probably the highest at the top end there. And so if you look at the chart, you'll see it's been climbing progressively. Like many of the other charts, there's definitely a pattern occurring.
Now, I've got to thank your colleagues at Century 21 Home Loans. I know my stuff's very complicated, but we've finally settled this afternoon and got all my finances all sorted, which was great.
I should look forward to a commission based on...
Yeah, I'll maybe buying you dinner. We had some... I was saying some people here that we did it. What's your thoughts on the banks with serviceability? Like, are the banks nice and are they lending money these days, or are they being a bit tight?
They're still sticking to the criteria. I mean, they'll give you a really hard time. They need to know the loan is going to be serviced, and that's the biggest issue with the banks. They've got money, they want to give it out, but they want to know you can service it. And it's pretty hard to really go beyond that with most banks, Chris.
Yeah, and I guess for a lot of the first home buyers, they've got to realise that, look, rates are going to get up there. So while we're encouraging people to take action, get into the market, hopefully there's some more capital growth there, they've still got to be aware that it might cost them more money in the future.
It might cost them more money. I'm always concerned about people buying in hotspots. That's something we spoke about today. I'm also concerned about people who buy when the market's moving rather than in winter when the market's slowing down. And that's a good time to get out and negotiate. So it's something they need to keep in mind because, yep, inevitably, rates in New Zealand have risen, so inevitably it'll happen, but maybe not right now, but inevitably it'll happen.
And John, I've got about 20 seconds. I gave you about 20 minutes to think about it. Which of the states are you thinking, or the cities you're thinking, are the ones to invest for the future?
Brisbane.
Brisbane.
Oh, John, come on. We've been talking about that for a long time. So
Sydney.
we got to buy. You and I got to go and buy in Brisbane.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I mean, you look at those rental rates of return on Moray Field.
Stay there.
Charles Tarbey from Century 21, John Edwards from Resurrex, thanks for seeing us this evening. And thanks for joining us at home. We'll be back next week. Until then, I'm Chris Gray. Good night.